Just got out of A Quiet Place Day 1. Ryan, what are you looking forward to this? How do you like this franchise? And is this the best one of the three?
I love this franchise. It's one of the best movie premises probably ever. I love a great premise. Is this the best of the franchise? No, it's probably my least favorite. I think we'll get into it a little bit, but I think the obvious reason is that it's not tied to everything that we've seen before this. The family, it doesn't have this clear path forward. It's like a vignette in this universe, and so if you understand that, you're gonna be fine, but it's not like I felt this movie the way that I felt the other two.
It's a very singular experience, and what I mean by that is essentially there are no huge implications. Obviously, everything happening with the aliens, that's a big deal, right? But the characters that we're finding ourselves getting attached to or not really getting attached to, and things that are happening, it doesn't really lead us to anything, and that's fine. It's a premise that you could do 1,000 spin-offs of, and so do it and make them, and we'll show up, because again, like you said, the premise of A Quiet Place is amazing. I also like the fact that they got a different director. There's a bit of a different feel and style to this movie. The visuals are great. Everything about it looks awesome, and it looks very cinematic. And so for that, and some of these jump scares that actually really got me, a couple that I didn't expect, that I usually find cheesy, worked really well. That's why you go out to the theater. But I agree with you, it is definitely the weakest of the trilogy, because I just could not get attached to Lupita Nyong'o's story as much as I wanted to. And when some other characters come in, they're interesting, and the connections that they have are interesting. But at the end of the day, I just didn't really find myself. And I asked a lot of questions in this movie, Ryan. Some of the decision-making, specifically what they did with the cat. And I love the cat. I think it's cute. I think there's a nice message there, especially towards the end of the film. But there are times where the cat's just kind of gone, and it's back, and it's in the water, but it's dry, and it's wet again. And I'm like, were there just things that they maybe didn't think about making this movie?
Let's be honest. Look, the cat is a service animal. It's also an incredible liability in this universe. So I'm thinking a lot about that, but also it takes you out of the movie several occasions, just because it's asking us to buy into this cat doing certain things, and it just, it's just an element that we didn't really need, really didn't want. And yeah, so it wasn't my favorite. I think that's the main thing that we've talked about since leaving the theater, is that damn cat, actually.
Us and other people were kind of discussing it with us, like, where was the cat in this moment? Look, we like the cat. I think the cat's awesome. I'm an animal guy.
Liar! Yeah.
But when you're in the midst of these monsters that get a little freaked out when it comes to sound, I don't think it's the best thing to have and incorporate.
And the irony is that one of the most popular screenwriting books ever written is called Save the Cat. It doesn't work.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly right. And it took me out of the movie multiple times, right? Yeah. What were the things that you really enjoyed about this movie, maybe that differs from the first two films?
I liked the setting and the premise. Like I said before in our other video, I will see every movie in this franchise. So, put it in New York, put it in Japan. That's whatever you want to do, I'm fine. You don't have to do much to change. Just change the setting. Give me a couple of interesting, great set pieces, and I'm good. Leave it at an hour and a half.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Yes.
So, that's all. I'm not walking out of it thinking that it's the greatest masterpiece or anything like that.
Sure.
But I sat down. It was a short movie. I had fun because it's a great type of movie and premise to see in theaters, and I'm good.
The runtime is magnificent. Keep movies at this length of this specific style, because it doesn't feel like they're extending it to the point to where you're kind of getting bored. There were a couple of moments where they're spending time, but those were the only moments where I really connected to the characters. And so those moments are really important. The idea of these creatures landing in New York, and they say it at the beginning, the loudest city in the world, and all of the things that they have to do, and when there are large crowds and maybe one noise is being made, combined with another, and then you start to get that movement and momentum of noises to where, all right, the creatures are coming, even though everybody's trying their best to be quiet. Those scenes were great. And those were the scenes when I saw the original two movies that I said, all right, if they do this type of thing with a spin-off of sorts, it's going to be great. It wasn't great. I really wish they would have written the characters in more of a way to where I would have connected to them more. It just wasn't the family. from the first two films. And that's what I love about those first two films. Also, the score in this movie maybe wasn't as good. This is the director of Pig, I believe the composer of Pig. Pig's a far better film, but again, you go to these movies to have an experience, a horror experience, a thriller experience, and this being a spin-off, we've seen way worse horror spin-offs. We've had way worse theatrical experiences in the genre of movie number 3, movie number 4 that has just completely fallen flat. And so again, entertaining, enjoyable enough, but as a huge fan of this franchise, personally, I expected more, I expected to care more, and I didn't want to ask all the questions that I was asked. Yes, again, man, the decision-making was a little whack at points. So final thoughts, Ryan, what do you think overall about this one?
I'm not the biggest horror guy. I understand, you know, when you watch a horror movie, you're probably thinking that a lot of the characters are making like dumb decisions or things. There's a lot of inconsistencies and things like that. I think this is the most typical horror movie that A Quiet Place has been. I think the other two movies rise above the genre, and because of the premise and because of the great direction from Krasinski. Not that the director did a poor job. He was maybe the best director, actually. I just am tied to his movie least, which is a weird thing to say, but I kind of believe it. So, you know, I think there's inconsistencies with like buying into when the monsters would attack at this point, but not at this point. Why is this louder than that? Why is this getting more of a reaction? So there was a lot more of that, and it kind of just brought it back down to a normal, fun, theatrical horror experience.
As opposed to something so entirely different like that first movie was. And again, like you said, good director. This is a cinematic and stylistic movie to its core. I mean, it's one of those where you're so glad you're watching it in a theater, and it doesn't feel generic while you're watching it. But like you said, some inconsistencies, some questions, and some things that I think Krasinski did a little bit better. Also, I missed the sign language. I get it, it's day one. We're not going to have that with every character, but that's just a nice little thing to add into a franchise like this. So overall, we're going to talk about this more, talk some spoilers on the Movie Mode podcast, and I am going to say I recommend it with some, you know, a question mark there. Maybe recommend it if you're a fan of this franchise. Ryan?
I recommend it. It'll hold you over.
Don't you love when a reaction turns into a review? Final thoughts here. Joseph Quinn does a nice job. Michael Sarnowski, I did think his direction was really solid. It was more the script that I took issue with. And overall, it is an entertaining time on the big screen. You may have some story nitpicks along the way, but if you like this franchise, I would at least say it's worth a watch to see where you fall. If you guys enjoy this review, or whatever you're thinking about A Quiet Place Day One, was it necessary? Was it unnecessary? Leave your thoughts down below and drop a thumbs up if you like this style of video. Day One does a nice job of expanding upon this already fantastic idea in a larger setting. This entry is occasionally exciting, filled with fantastic effects, and chocked full of effective scares. The issues start with its less interesting characters. This script just doesn't have the creativity of the first two, and it feels like a less impactful experience as a whole. That's where I fall. It's still a franchise that I'm going to watch whatever movie they put out, a spin-off, a sequel, a prequel, bring them all on. I just felt this one had less of an impact than maybe I had hoped for, but you have two great performances at the forefront. So thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned, man. Lots of movies this weekend. Horizon, I got to talk about The Bear. We talked Kalki. Oh my God.